Welcome to the Next News Network. Between the headlines, I am Gary Franchi, and it's a little later show than normal today, and we're testing out some new things, so bear with us if you see some bugs today. Not sure if you're detecting any streaming stuttering or not, but if you guys could let me know in the comments how it's coming in, that would be swell. Good evening, I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, delivering the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with Trump Daily Post. President Trump's NATO trip to Turkey led the day with arrival ceremonies, a bilateral with the President Erdogan, and a leaders' dinner that put American leadership front and center. We're also tracking the White House push for Trump accounts, fresh economic messaging tied to tariffs and working family tax relief, and a sharpened administration focus on restoring truth in American history. From today's pool report, Air Force One touched down at the airbase in Ankara at 1:51 p.m. local time for the president's NATO summit schedule. The White House laid out a full slate: an arrival greeting, a state ceremony, an honor guard review, a bilateral meeting with President Erdogan, and later a NATO leaders' social dinner. On the ground, a welcoming delegation including Ambassador Tom Barak, Ambassador to Turkey, and Special Presidential Envoy for Syria and Iraq Ambassador Matt Whitaker to NATO, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane. Turkish President Erdogan was also listed among the greeters. Minutes later, President Trump deplaned at 2:15 p.m., met Erdogan at the end of the aqua blue carpet flanked by Turkish military personnel. The two leaders exchanged a brief greeting, posed for photographs, and were joined at the arrival by Emin Erdogan before heading into the main terminal. The motorcade rolled from the airbase towards the presidential compound, and by 3:20, the motorcade reached the compound after a heavily secured route lined with barricades, police, and NATO welcome signs, with Allied flags visible along the approach. Then came the formal arrival ceremony at 3:23 p.m. President Erdogan hosted President Trump for an honor guard review at the compound, with soldiers in traditional and formal dress lining the aqua blue carpet, leading to the July 15 Martyrs Monument. Star Spangled Banner played at 3:27 with cannon fire, and at 3:32, 4 red fighter jets streaked overhead, trailing red, white, and blue smoke before both leaders entered the building at 3:33 p.m. And once inside, President Trump opened his bilateral meeting with Erdogan alongside Ambassador Barak, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The president praised the hospitality, pointed to trade, military issues, and Iran as key agenda items, and underscored his ongoing review of F-35 decisions while pressing allies in Europe over their posture towards Iran. After the meeting wrapped, the president pointed to Toyota shifting operations from Mexico into the United States as a direct result of tariff pressure and America First manufacturing policy. He also said he expects progress in the meeting with President Zelensky, referencing prior talks with Vladimir Putin, and said he's working with Secretary Rubio on lifting CAA-TSA sanctions involving Turkey. Later in the afternoon, the press pool departed the presidential compound at 5:55 p.m. local time as the day's first round of summit events came to a close. And by 6:04, the pool reached the hotel and held there ahead of the evening's NATO dinner with security still tight across Ankara. A dinner lid then went into effect until 7 p.m. local time. At 8:09 p.m., the motorcade rolled again towards the presidential compound for the NATO leaders' social dinner. And then 7 minutes later, the president arrived at Bestep for the evening gathering. The guest list for that dinner included NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, President Emmanuel Macron, Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Prime Minister Giorgio Meloni, President Zelensky, and senior European Union leaders, alongside President Erdogan and President Trump. In a White House release tied to the dinner, the menu featured regional dishes including stone oven baked pied, Monty sea bass or slow roasted beef rib, and baklava with milk, Antep pistachio foam, Miraz ice cream, and bergamot. At 10:33 p.m., the motorcade departed the presidential compound. By 10:45, the president was back at the overnight location, and the White House called a lid for the night, closing out the first full day of summit activity. In a separate White House press release, the administration kept its domestic push moving by spotlighting the working families' tax cuts and Trump accounts. The White House said that every eligible American child can receive a $1,000 account to build wealth for education, housing, business, or long-term financial security. And it blasted the Democrats for fighting the plan, singling out Representative Benny Thompson for urging families to turn it down. That's the White House rundown from the last 24 hours. President Trump projected strength abroad at NATO, pressed America's interest in direct talks with Turkey, and kept the administration's message focused on tax relief, opportunity for children, and economic renewal at home. Now let's turn from the West Wing file to the other top stories moving the country tonight, and welcome you to the program. Okay, so lips not matching the words. Okay. All right, so is it like stuttering for you guys? Yeah, it looks like it's stuttering for me too. Okay. Oh, man. I can't believe where I live, I can't get good internet. It just makes no sense. Okay. We spent so much time setting it up. I don't know. Let's take a look at what it looks like real quick. Okay. I mean, this one looks clean and easy and, well, sort of. Let's see here. We're going to go back to this shot here. It's really hard to tell. Just get a mobile Starlink. I do have a mobile Starlink. That would require setting up a completely separate internet just for one thing. Anyway. Okay. Brian, I think we can proceed. Let's just do what we got to do here. First, where's my glass cleaner? There it is. Okay, guys. Sorry, we're getting a late start tonight. We had a lot of adjustments that needed to be made in the studio here. And as you can tell, we have a new camera set up in the studio. And that is increasing our upstream bandwidth, which appears to be causing a little bit of a lag. The laptop is... Well, let me close out X. Yeah, this looks okay. It doesn't look bad. But if I go here, okay. All right, well, we're going to try to proceed here. And I decided to put a tie on for you guys. You happy? All right. Okay, so we're going to open up with this shot, and then we're going to cut to this shot. All right, I'm just trying to get my bearings on these new cameras. Okay, I'm ready, Brian. On May 31st, Bad Hombre posted the whole script. Democrats would sit on damaging opposition research, unleash a controlled leak campaign after the primary, force Graham Platner out by July 13th, then slide in Janet Mills by July 27th. And now look at the board. Clay Travis says they waited until after July 4th to code red Platner, Politico drops the story, CNN blasts the clip, Khanna, Ruben Gallego, Tim Walz, Cory Booker all yank support in a near simultaneous stampede. That's not coincidence. That's a party switch getting flipped, and the ugliest part excuse me, is this. Democrats already knew exactly who they built. And this matters because Maine just caught the Democrat machine rigging the nomination in plain sight, while Chuck Schumer's party still struts around lecturing America about democracy. Maine Democrats held a primary. Their voters picked Graham Platner on June 9th. Then the same party bosses, media allies, and blue-check enforcers who defended him through the Nazi tattoo, the communist rhetoric, the abuse stories, the Predator app scandal, and the grotesque comments suddenly discovered standards on July 6th. After the holiday, with 1 week left before July 13th withdrawal deadline and the clean path to replacement by July 27th under Maine law. That date pair is the whole game, and even Grok laid it out. Bad Hombre forecast it more than a month earlier. Clay Travis nailed the timing, and it wasn't a moral awakening, it was ballot engineering. And if Democrats can erase primary voters in Maine this casually, they'll do it anywhere they need control, then turn around and smear Trump voters as the threat. President Trump builds his movement in the open, and Democrats, they run coups through leaks, cable hits, and backroom swaps. And when a party can flip a switch after July 4th and try to erase voters by July 13th, you better ask what else can vanish with one command. Your savings, your access, your future? Everyone cheers AI and cloud banking until your wealth is trapped on a screen. Noble Gold Investments gives you something real. Physical gold and silver. A coin you can hold, a bar you can stack, something that doesn't live on a server. Can't be frozen by a keystroke and can't be erased by code. It can even be shipped to your door, placed in a tax-advantaged retirement account. Go to nextnewsgold.com, just mention my name for a free 10-ounce U.S. independent silver bar when you open a new qualified account. America needs assets the machine can't rig. Here's the detail the regime can't scrub. Jake Tapper's exchange ended with the accuser saying, complying is not consenting. That clip gave Democrats their permission slip, not to find the truth, to move the timetable, because the same people who shrugged at every earlier red flag suddenly stampeded only after CNN had the soundbite. Politico had the headline, and the calendar lined up with July 13th. We're going to show you the receipts, because once you see the sequence, the coup stops looking messy, starts looking planned. Cory Booker says enough is enough. Graham Platner needs to step aside, so Booker wasting no time in demanding Platner step aside. Now Tim Walz piles on, says he should be clearing the way for a Democrat who can take on Susan Collins. Oh yes, they're piling on the allegations of sexual assault against Graham Platner. Deeply disturbing. He should drop out and make way for a candidate that can defeat Susan Collins in November, so the pressure is already building. Libs of TikTok lays out the bigger play, coordinated media drops, synchronized condemnations. It's happening. The left decided Platner isn't useful to them anymore, so they had Politico drop a new rape claim, then had media outlets amplify, and now they will all suddenly condemn him and withdraw their endorsements almost simultaneously. It's coordinated and it's obvious. And she posts to Khanna, Politico, CNN. That's the pattern the critics are watching in real time. Sean Farash takes it a step further and calls a straight-up Democrat bait-and-switch in Maine. He says, and he posted this early this morning, the Democrats are running into the bait-and-switch play, this time in Maine with Graham Platner. Why does the party even have primaries in the first place? How are Democrat voters not sick of this? Well, he says it's not just about Platner anymore. It's about Democrat voters getting played again. Next, he delivers the broader case that their own base keeps getting overruled by party bosses. Dear Democrat voters, you need to come to grips with the sad reality that your party is the real threat to democracy in this country. Hillary in 2016 was not who you chose. Bernie got screwed. Biden in 2020 was not who you chose. Bernie got screwed again. Harris in 2024 was not who you chose. You nominated Platner, and these 11th hour rape allegations just tank that selection as if the allegations are fresh, and Democrat Party leaders had no idea that this was a possibility. You have no say in your party, none. You're controlled pawns on their chessboard. They don't care about you, and they never will. They're using you for power. Wake up and split the hook before it's too late. And here's the post from Bad Hombre. He says, I told you. This is remarkable. Democrats are sitting on a mountain of damaging opposition research on Platner. If they don't unload it before June 9th primary, expect a controlled leak campaign throughout June aimed at forcing him to withdraw by July 13th so they can replace him with Janet Mills on the general election ballot before the July 27th deadline. No, Democrats are not above staging coups against their own nominees. See Joe Biden. So the old post was on target. Didn't happen by accident. Now the calls for Platner to quit spread even further with Zoran Mandami joining the pile-on. He demands he quit the Senate race in Maine.
I wanted to ask, given that you have a sort of ascendant role in the Democratic Party, could you talk about the Maine Senate race? Do you think that Graham Platner should drop out of the race? And do you have any intention of endorsing any candidates in competitive races outside of New York, El Said, or anyone else?
No, I believe that it's time for him to drop out of the race. And when it comes to my own endorsements, I've made 8 endorsements at the state and federal level. They've all been right here in New York City. I'm incredibly excited at the fact that they won their races, and that's where my focus is for now. I think the focus of today should be to respond to the gravity of what so many of us have read. And I think that the only appropriate response is for the campaign to come to an end.
Thank you. We're going to go to...
So even the Democrat bench is turning on him. Clay Travis says the timing tells you everything, arguing they waited until after July 4th to spring the trap. Democrats waited until after July 4th holiday to code red Platner. They did it with a full week left to force him out of the race. It's diabolical how they are fine with erasing primaries and handpicking new nominees, all while claiming Republicans will destroy democracy. His point is simple. The machine picked its moment. Next, viewers hear the CNN interview at the center of the firestorm as Jake Tapper presses Platner's accuser on what she says happened. Buckle up.
You said that I just want to find out more about. You said he was forcing himself on you. It was getting violent. You were pushing him off. You were kicking him off. Needles and sewing equipment was falling all over. And walk us through the process where you decided that the safest thing you could do was just let him rape you.
Yeah, I had never been in that situation before. And I remember it being an instant where I had recognized that he wasn't listening to me. It wasn't just that he wasn't hearing me or whatnot. And then I recognized his level of intoxication, and I knew in that moment I wasn't safe. And I don't think I was safe to physically fight back. He's big, he's strong. And I just had to evaluate my safety and come up with the least worst outcome to the situation. And so I felt like complying for my safety was the least worst option.
But that's not consenting.
No, complying is not consenting.
Complying is letting him rape you.
Is getting it over with.
Oh my goodness.
So that he didn't hurt you even more?
I don't know what this person is capable of. I don't think anybody does. And even people you know for years and trust, you don't know the depths of what they're capable of. And
you were afraid for your safety?
Yeah, I was afraid for my safety.
Beyond, not that rape isn't a horrific thing, but beyond.
Right.
Rape.
I didn't want to find out how unsafe I could get that night. Or how harmed I could be that night.
Unbelievable. The interview is exactly what detonated this inside the Democrat Party. Now Sean Spicer says the next move is obvious. Force Platner out and handpick a replacement. Trust me on this. D.C. Democrats are about to pull another Biden, despite a primary where Maine voters chose known dirtbag Graham Platner. They are going to switch him out. Janet Mills is about to get a second life, courtesy of Schumer. And here is Platner.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics, the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power, and to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated. And we will use every tool at our disposal to do so. As Maine goes, so goes the nation. As always, thank you.
So, he says he's reflecting on the path forward, but the questions are only getting sharper. Over on Morning Joe, Politico gets grilled on why it ran the story now and what evidence it says it reviewed. Morning Joe spends 5 minutes grilling Politico's Adam Wren for running a story on Platner's ex, accusing him of rape. Given the high standards Politico has before they write something like this and publish it, what aspects of the story brought it to the level of publishable?
Questions about this, the questions surrounding this on both sides of this debate. There's not a police report, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. And there's not a legal case playing out here for due process to see itself through. So my question to you, given the very high standards Politico has before they write something like this and publish it, what aspects of this story brought it to the level of publishable?
Yeah, you're correct here, Mika. There is no police report in this case. We spent a lot of time talking to Jenny, asking her for corroborating evidence. She shared that she had confided into a number of people, including her therapist, in almost real time. And we reviewed email exchanges between she and her therapist, referring to what she called this sexual assault, and her therapist sort of acknowledging that this had happened to her. We talked to people who she confided in the months after this happened. We asked her why she didn't file a police report, and she described sort of the insular nature of where she lives in her corner of Maine that she shares with Graham Platner. And she, debated sort of how to handle this. And we found ultimately the number of corroborating pieces of evidence to support her story in a way that we could report it.
So what are some...
So even the media getting questioned on the timing. Laura Ingraham's panel zeroes in on an even darker claim. The major outlets and Democrats knew much more long before this report dropped. The New York Times covered itself in shame. Steve Robinson. Here's more from Laura Ingraham.
Steve, I want to start with you. This new accuser, Jenny Rasico, says that she never went to the police because she was shocked, and then she was worried that Platner would retaliate against her. What is your sense tonight?
Well, first, I'll say she's not the only person in Maine right now who is scared of retaliation and violence from Platner or the Platneristas. I know that there's a lot of women and a lot of political operatives are making security upgrades because this is a guy who, by his own Reddit threads, has been training the Socialist Rifle Association up here in Maine. But also, this is the red line for Democrats in Maine. It wasn't the allegations in the New York Times report 1 month ago, which included tales of abuse against women, and also Jenny's story, which was given to the New York Times off the record, and they had to respect that agreement, but they buried it. So the New York Times has covered themselves in shame with this story, with how they handled the original report. But all the Maine Democrats, all the national Democrats, they learned about the Nazi tattoo, his obvious lies about the Nazi tattoo, multiple tales of sexual abuse, sexual violence, and they said this is fine. The Senate seat means more to us. But now that this woman has sat for an interview with Politico and Jake Tapper, now they're finally willing to all withdraw their endorsement. It doesn't speak well of any of the Democrats involved, Laura.
So that's true. That wasn't a vetting failure. It was a cover-up until the cost got too high. Scott Jennings makes the case bluntly, arguing Democrats signed off on Platner's record and now only pretending to be shocked.
The one thing I disagree with is when she said that he hadn't been vetted. No, he had been vetted. All of the things that have been stated, it was all out in the public. And people like Khanna, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Tim Walz, the Bulwark, Pod Save America, all these people came together to overlook it all, to explain it all, to rationalize it all. He was vetted. People knew all these things. And a whole bunch of Democrats in Maine showed up and voted for him anyway. And a bunch of donors from around the country sent him money anyway. I agree with Alyssa's question. What changed? Why are you bailing on Graham Platner now? You already signed off on Nazi tattoo, a self-described communist, somebody who's had rape fantasies, somebody who has been on a social media platform known as a playground for predators, and on and on and on and on and on. And the difference between this accuser and the previous one is simply this. She's a liberal. It's okay, I guess, for Democrats that their candidates assault conservatives. But he broke into someone's house and apparently, according to her, raped her. And because her politics are correct, they can now believe it. All of this whole thing is disgusting. But to say that they hadn't vetted him or that they didn't know about all this is totally false. They knew it and they signed up for it. And I don't know why they're backing away from this scumbag today when they had already signed off on all that other crazy behavior.
Christine. You gotta love Scott Jennings. He says they knew exactly who they were backing. Next, even CNN's Abby Phillip is heard calling out top Democrats like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, for looking the other way.
There is an issue here with a lot of very prominent Democrats, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, two among them,
my kind of man,
who basically turned the other way at the first set of allegations. Why does it take a sexual assault allegation for them
to that point, I heard Senator Kirsten Gillibrand speak at the Aspen Institute last week. And when Graham Platner came up, all she had to say was that he was a strong candidate and was going to, soar to a victory. There was no even an acknowledgement of the New York Times report of the Nazi tattoo. And if you all will remember, this is the same senator who was called the Me Too senator, in part because she led the charge against Al Franken in the Senate. She very much, was instrumental in pushing that culture forward. And I think Me Too was necessary in a lot of ways. But we didn't need a rape allegation to know that Graham Platner had already allegedly violated the standards that she set. And she was willing to sacrifice all her principles, among many other Democrats, to go up against arguably the most moderate Republican in the Senate, Susan Collins, who's already willing to go up against Trump. This is not some super partisan person.
So true.
Yeah.
So when CNN starts asking why Democrats ignored the warnings, the damage is spreading. Libs of TikTok follows with a full rap sheet of scandals. Nazi tattoo, lied repeatedly about Nazi tattoo, said he would rape people, sex with women while married, bragged about drawing penises in porta potties, praised Islamic terrorists, said he's a communist, joined an app known to be used by predators to contact minors in sexual assault allegations. But now they decided it's too much. All the above was totally fine, though. Laura Loomer's next move, even more direct, make Democrats own every endorsement, every excuse they made for this guy. She says, make every single voter remember the entire Democrat Party endorsed a Nazi who had been accused of raping women. I hear there are more women and possibly even kids on kick. The Democrat better own this shit. They better swallow it all because this is their guy. Make them own him. Red Lion Politics highlights the deleted post raising allegations about Troy Jackson, one of the names in the chatter. Caught this post, was deleted in seconds. Let's see. We began asking our contacts on the ground in Maine about Troy Jackson earlier today, seeing many suggestions that he should replace Graham Platner against Susan Collins. In our discussions, we've received troubling information not only about Jackson's behavior, but the behavior of many prominent Maine Democrats towards women more broadly, both as a result of the credibility of the sources and the interest not seeing our movement make the same mistake twice. We're choosing to share some of this now. As Maine Senate President in a state Senate caucus several years ago, Troy Jackson struck a female. The information is still developing, so they deleted that post. And wokeness widens the shot, tying Platner to the left's long-running double standard on masculinity and believing women. Platner embodied healthy masculinity, broke into his ex's home and raped her, allegedly. Emhoff, toxic masculinity is a crisis, impregnated his child's nanny. Swalwell, believe all women, allegedly assaulted 6 women. So next comes the question hanging over the whole race. Is Platner actually suspended or not? Well, no, he's not suspended his campaign following a Politico report. He says he's taking time to reflect on the best path forward. And now we have this from the Maine Democrat Party going public accusing Platner of basically holding them hostage.
Endorsement. Chuck wants him to end it immediately. And they're even shopping for his replacement. Democrats have less than a week to find a new candidate. But the New York Times reports that Platner won't step down unless Democrats promise to replace him with someone just as radical as himself. His campaign says that's not true, but we're not sure how good their word is at this point. The party knew Platner had skeletons in his closet. His opponent was warning about him back in March.
The negatives on this guy are much more damaging, and that's why I'm trying to get people to look at the whole thing, the whole picture. I think his liabilities make him much more vulnerable.
So the moral verdict, it lands in the timestamps. Bad Hombre wrote it on May 31st that Democrats would run a controlled leak campaign and force Graham Platner out by July 13th. So they could replace him by July 27th. Then Clay Travis said Democrats waited until after the 4th of July holiday to code red Platner. Then Politico published. Jake Tapper amplified. Cory Booker snapped. Tim Walz snapped. Ro Khanna withdrew his endorsement. Ruben Gallego rescinded his. Chuck Schumer world wants the slot cleared. That's not a party discovering character. That's a machine executing a timetable. And the villain is not just Graham Platner. Chuck Schumer's Democrat apparatus, the legacy media hit squad, and every sanctimonious leader who backed this man until the minute he became inconvenient, built this filth, sold this filth, and now they want amnesia. So here's the line that nobody should let Democrats cross without paying for it at the ballot box. They do not get to spend months defending Graham Platner, harvesting money off Graham Platner, herding primary voters into backing Graham Platner, then smash the glass after July 4th and pretend they just met the guy. Elizabeth Warren knew the record. Bernie Sanders knew the record. Tim Walz knew the record. Cory Booker knew the record. Ro Khanna knew enough to endorse him before he knew enough to flee him. Own it, every inch, and watch the next move closely because the calendar still screams louder than the press releases. July 13th for the exit, July 27th for the swap. If Janet Mills or another hand-picked replacement suddenly materializes, nobody should act surprised. Drop your take below and send this to the Democrat in your life who still babbles about norms, and keep your eyes on Maine. The machine just showed the country how it eats its own. And we're not going to let you lose out on the notifications that YouTube doesn't send you. That's why we set up this telephone number just for you. Raw feed is the one you have to text to 844-840-4963 to stay on the inside track like thousands and thousands of other patriots. And make sure you're celebrating the wins here with us at the Next News Network by going to the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Okay, that is, yeah, it's still choppy. Okay, we're going to have to work on that. Okay, so, yeah, we're going to be moving on into what's the latest on Mitch McConnell. Yeah, a lot of people think he's dead. We're going to get to the bottom of that. And then we're going to give you the latest on the Charlie Kirk, the Charlie Kirk trial, the latest out of Iran, NATO, and Seth Rich, also back in the news. So we'll bring that to you in just a moment. Okay, let's go ahead and get that started. Okay. Paramedics rushed to Mitch McConnell's Capitol Hill home on June 14th and performed CPR on an unconscious person in cardiac arrest. That's the detail. Not gossip, not rumor, CPR, and then silence. Mitch McConnell hasn't voted since June 11th. His office has coughed up almost nothing, and the same Republican establishment that spent years blocking America First now expects Kentucky and the whole country to sit down and shut up and trust the cartel. Meanwhile, Elaine Chao turns up in Beijing with Chinese Vice President Han Zheng just days later. If that sentence doesn't stop you cold, well, perhaps this next part will. And this matters because the seat is not a retirement gift. It's a weapon in the fight over President Trump's agenda, and Mitch McConnell's inner circle, Senate leadership, and the broader D.C. machine just left that weapon on the table while pretending voters don't deserve the truth. People's Pundit nailed the pressure point. If Republicans blow past the August cutoff date, Kentucky risks getting cheated. The Senate balance gets shaky, and Democrats grab leverage they did not earn. That's not bookkeeping, that is sabotage. McConnell's absence already flipped a critical vote tied to Trump's Iran war powers. More fights sit in the chamber right now. An emergency defense bill, a third reconciliation package, and a razor-thin majority that cannot afford establishment games. John Thune floated the soft line that McConnell sounded good and wants to be back. Scott Jennings says he spoke with him for nearly 20 minutes from the hospital. Fine, then where's the proof of life? Prove service capacity or move the seat. No more whispered updates, no more hospice politics, no more staff-run government masquerading as representation. See, June 14th gave us CPR at a senator's home, and another reminder that modern life quietly drains people until they stop feeling recovered. Well, look at the medbed hack. It starts there. Think back to the last time you felt truly restored, not just less tired. Jonathan Otto and Red Life built an at-home system around cellular energy focus because mitochondria get less energy production, slower recovery, and slower repair when we lose the right frequencies of light and the right electromagnetic environment. Their clinically studied wellness technologies combine red light therapy and PMF using specific wavelengths to boost cellular energy production and support natural repair processes. General electromagnetic pulses help circulation, recovery, and function. You get 10 clinically studied wavelengths, advanced dual chip technology, up to twice the power, 30 minutes a day right from home. Go to medbedhack.com. It's linked below. Code NNN30 for 30% off bundles, NNN25 for 25% off individual devices. Demand truth, not managed decline. Now here's a detail the establishment can't wash away with one more recovering statement. While Mitch McConnell missed votes here, his wife Elaine Chao sat in Beijing with Chinese Vice President Han Zheng. That image alone tells you how warped this ruling class has become. A Kentucky Senate seat hangs in the balance. Trump's agenda hangs in the balance, and the family circle projects calm from China while Washington hides the ball at home. And I'm going to go through the tweets, the dates, and the clips showing just how long this decay stayed hidden in plain sight. A majority of Americans now believe Mitch McConnell is dead and are ready to replace him with a real patriot. So that really sums up the grassroots mood. Now, Rich Barris takes it a step further, warning Republicans to stop playing dumb and move before the August deadline. The People's Pundit, Mitch McConnell is done. So unless Republicans want to get stuck with an empty seat and screwed, they should tell everyone now what's going on and hold a special election before the August cutoff date. Otherwise, the Senate balance could be in jeopardy. Next, Mario Naval lays out why the rumors are getting louder with the dispatch audio and total silence from McConnell's office. Sources close to the White House are saying McConnell isn't coming back. His office isn't saying much, and the silence is becoming the story. Emergency dispatch audio from June 14th captured paramedics rushing to his Capitol Hill home, performing CPR on an unconscious person with a reported cardiac arrest. His staff confirmed he was hospitalized that morning. They haven't confirmed anything else, and he hasn't voted since June 11th. Majority Leader Thune says he sounded good and wants to be back, but that was 3 weeks ago. Laura Loomer posted on Monday that he's not coming back, and her sources have been saying the same thing for days. His absence already flipped one critical vote on Trump's war powers, an emergency defense bill, a third reconciliation, and a razor-thin Senate majority. At 84, the longest-serving Senate leader in American history may have cast his last vote without anyone knowing it at the time. And now here is a neighbor for Senator Mitch McConnell says he hasn't seen anyone around his home.
Everything happened. I didn't see him come out, but
oh, you saw the paramedics here? Yeah. Okay. Have you seen any family? Has no family has come?
I haven't seen anyone coming or going from there.
Yeah, because I know his Capitol Police detail. They're over at the hospital, so I just thought So his wife, Elaine Chao, was found in China 3 days after he went into cardiac arrest. So we're trying to figure out where she is. It doesn't look like she has come back to the house. So I was wondering, have you seen her at all?
No, I haven't seen anyone.
Oh my God. Can you explain what happened?
I have to go to work.
Oh yeah, sorry. Have a great day. Thank you for your help. All right, everyone. So talk to a neighbor who was, I guess, here for the cardiac arrest event when the paramedics were called. Apparently no family has come by here yet, so I don't think Elaine Chao has come back from China yet, potentially. I don't know if they have a home in Kentucky or not, but it doesn't sound like she's come back.
So you saw the timeline, the missing votes, and the questions. Now Senator Mike Lee weighs in saying the reason senators aren't talking is simpler. Many of them say they know nothing. Many of us aren't speaking about Mitch McConnell's condition because we know nothing about his condition. So he says there's an information blackout, not a coordinated confession, but the mystery gets stranger. As reports say McConnell's eldest daughter has wiped her social media accounts. Mitch McConnell's eldest daughter has deleted her social media accounts as speculation mounts over her father's health. So the accounts suddenly go nuked. Next, Buzz Patterson says out loud what plenty of people already are whispering and ties it to Elaine Chao heading to China. I think he's dead. I'm hearing rumors. That's why his wife booked for China. What do you think? So he puts the rumor front and center, points straight to Chao's travel. Now Mario Naval comes back with more on the Beijing trip and the growing vacuum around McConnell's condition. His wife, former Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, traveling to Beijing days after McConnell was hospitalized. Chinese state media proudly published photos of Chao sitting down with the vice president of China to discuss U.S.-China relations. Meanwhile, an unverified social media claim, someone recounting a conversation with a neighbor, alleges McConnell hasn't been seen at home since the emergency. The hospitalized senator, a Beijing meeting, and an information vacuum. The questions are piling up faster than the answers. So while Chao is reportedly meeting with Chinese official, McConnell's own side isn't giving straight answers. And of course, we just played you Desiree Townsend's account of speaking with the neighbor, only adding fuel to the fire around the missing transparency. Next, an earlier moment on Capitol Hill that raises another question: who was really managing McConnell even behind the scenes? Desiree Townsend doing remarkable work. Remember this gem from May 13th? Is it starting to make sense now?
I'm going to ask Senator Murkowski to wrap up. Thank you all for being here.
Baldwin, Shaheen, and Kennedy. Baldwin, Shaheen, and Kennedy still have questions. Wrap up after.
Hold here. Yeah. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of time for a second round, so we'll get through everybody. And Senator Murkowski, I appreciate your taking over.
Wow. So the hearing clip is people asking who's calling the shots. Now another video from the Senate floor showing staff steering McConnell through what looked like a serious decline. More from Desiree Townsend's reporting.
Power.
We're in a quorum call.
I suggest that quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Hard power is the cornerstone of U.S. national security. I've never liked calling too much attention to today's date, February 20th. But I figured my birthday would be as good a day as any to share with our colleagues a decision I made last year. During my time in the Senate, I've only really answered to two constituencies, the Republican Conference and the people of Kentucky. I will not seek this honor an eighth time. My current term in the Senate will be my last.
Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, aye.
Wow. You get the point. After the floor clips, the establishment line gets a lot harder to sell. Next, Marjorie Taylor Greene unloads on the silence from Washington and goes straight at Elaine Chao. TMZ DC caught this.
Listen, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Mitch McConnell situation. He's been hospitalized for weeks. Other than that, we don't really know what's going on. What do you think about it?
I think it's extremely serious, and I'd like to say shame on the Republican Party for just basically staying silent while such a powerful Republican senator is basically laying in a hospital like a vegetable. Mm-hmm. And his wife flew to China and met with the vice president of China just days after he basically died, and they brought him back with CPR and took him to the hospital. But you know what? It doesn't surprise me from the establishment, because this is what they support. They support people holding on to power until they're practically dead or do die in office. And this is why the state of our country is so pathetic.
So do you want Republican senators and leadership to be speaking out against this? Like, what do you want from them exactly if they don't know what's going on with him?
Yeah, Mitch McConnell had a stroke on television, I think it was last year. And that was the earliest signs. But none of these elected officials, Republican, Democrats, congressmen, senators, should ever stay in office until they're ailing in health. Joe Biden is another one. He was the president while he had dementia and was clearly failing on the world stage. But no, shame on every single person in Washington, D.C. that doesn't call this out and demand that Mitch McConnell's family step up and announce his resignation and take care of their family member. Because there needs to be a new election held in Kentucky where they can have a functioning person serve as a senator. And then also, I want to call this out. This really irritates me. The Republican Party is all campaigning against communism right now. What about Elaine Chao? Elaine Chao flew to China and met with the vice president just a few days after Mitch McConnell practically died and went to the hospital. So when are we going to call out a possible communist Chinese spy right there?
You're calling his wife a possible Chinese spy.
Yes, 100%. What woman leaves her husband's side while he is dead or dying in the hospital, flies to China and meets with the vice president? Answer me that.
I wanted to get back to one of the things that you previously mentioned about the potential open Senate seat if he were to pass away or resign. I mean, what do you make of that? Who do you think might run for that? How do you think that's just all going to shake out if it does become available?
I have no idea who would run for it, but I'd love to see Thomas Massie run, because that man, they ran an Israeli operation on him with 3 billionaire Israeli donors, and they totally stole that seat from Kentucky. And you know what they did that was really disgusting? They broke the law and actually created a fake AI campaign ad showing him supposedly in some sex trio with AOC and Ilhan Omar. And that was wrong. And, you know, they broke the law, and that's how they treat him. But I think Thomas Massie would make a great senator, and anybody that rejects AIPAC money.
I know you're pretty close with Massie. I mean, has he said anything about potentially running for the seat?
No, we were talking about fishing the other day and talking about the beach. I haven't asked him about the Senate seat.
So she's not nibbling around the edges, accusing the GOP machine of protecting its own. Next, we revisit a moment where McConnell reportedly told the SAVE Act had the votes. Another clip feeding questions about his condition. Oh, Mitch McConnell being told the SAVE Act has the votes to pass. Oh, yeah, suddenly, yeah, right? But now comes the pushback, as Jennings says he personally spoke with McConnell for nearly 20 minutes. He says, and this was posted today, I spoke with my old friend Mitch McConnell this morning, the senior senator from Kentucky. He's still recovering in the hospital. We talked for just shy of 20 minutes about Iran, Ukraine, the unfolding situation in Maine, my visit to the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library, even a little bit of Senate history. I told him we want to see him back at work as soon as possible, but yet we do not have proof of life. So the moral verdict lands right on that June 14th dispatch audio. Paramedics performing CPR at Mitch McConnell's home, an unconscious patient, cardiac arrest, and 3 weeks of fog spin and elite muttering, while his office, John Thune, and the Senate class treated the American people like livestock. And Elaine Chao, his own wife, showing up in Beijing with the vice president there of China days later, turns the whole scandal radioactive. Not because voters owe the cartel blind trust, because they do not. Mitch McConnell's inner circle hid the condition of a sitting senator while his absence altered votes that affect President Trump, war powers, defense, and reconciliation. If Mitch McConnell cannot serve, say it. If he will not return, open the seat. Kentucky did not elect a ghost, a staff pod, or a backroom committee. So here is the demand tonight, and it's not complicated. Mitch McConnell's office must give an immediate, plain English account of his capacity to serve. John Thune must stop hiding behind clubby Senate etiquette and tell the country whether Republicans plan to protect this seat before the August cutoff. Kentucky Republicans must prepare an America First replacement now, not after Democrats exploit another establishment blunder. President Trump won the White House back to break the cartel, not to let that cartel sabotage his agenda from inside the GOP. And if the insiders think that voters will just nod along while CPR audio, missed votes, and a Beijing photo op pile up in the same story, they've learned nothing from the last decade. So put this clip in front of every Kentucky voter you know. Force the issue. Ask one question and do not let them squirm away from it. Who's actually representing Kentucky in the United States Senate right now? And I want to make sure you don't miss out and you get the news that you depend on from the Next News Network. Thousands and thousands of patriots are already getting that news when the YouTube notifications never arrive. So all you got to do is text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963 and get on the inside track like everybody else. And make sure you're celebrating with the Next News Network by going to the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. So what do you guys think? Mitch McConnell? Is he dead? Video's glitching. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bandwidth issue on our side, guys. That's what the problem is. We're doing our best. Tried to add this camera shot to the lineup, and it's definitely causing some issues. So we're going to power through it regardless and bring you the news tonight and make adjustments. Oh, and tomorrow I am going to be, I got to leave really early tomorrow. Vice President J.D. Vance is going to be in Milwaukee, so I'm on the list to attend with the White House press corps to cover that event, and I'll be giving you some on-the-ground updates from that event. He'll be talking about the fraud and the war on fraud that they are currently winning. So that's going to be pretty cool. So that's tomorrow. I got to leave the studio at like 3:30 in the morning to get up to Milwaukee tomorrow. Okay. Now we're going to move into the latest from the Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk assassination news. At 12:23, Tyler Robinson dropped into a prone position on the roof edge, and seconds later, Charlie Kirk was dead. Before that, prosecutors showed he'd already cased the campus again and again, even stopped for a casual Chick-fil-A lunch and then returned for the third time to finish the job. And in court, seated just feet from Charlie's family, Robinson never turned back once, never showed remorse, and that single sequence just gutted every filthy fantasy pushed online for clicks, cash, and chaos. The lie machine just ran headfirst into surveillance video, sworn testimony, and a widow that they tried to smear. Now this matters because the country just watched two forms of evil collide in one case. First, a deranged left-wing extremist murdered one of the biggest conservative voices in America. Second, media-adjacent grifters used Charlie Kirk's blood as content. They smeared Erica Kirk. They smeared TPUSA. They smeared Charlie's closest friends. They shoved foreign boogeymen and internet sludge in front of the public while the actual killer sat on video casing UVU multiple times, and under oath, the lead investigator blew up one of the nastiest lies in the whole carnival. Tyler Robinson had been on campus approximately 4 times throughout that day. 4 times. That means the line that he had never even set foot there didn't just age badly, it got crushed in open court under oath. And the bigger stake is obvious. If the left can normalize assassinating a conservative, and opportunists can then redirect the blame onto the victim's widow, every America First patriot gets the message loud and clear. Speak boldly, and the machine will target your life and your name. And when a courtroom has to bulldoze lies one frame at a time, you remember how much of the American life runs on confusion by design. Medicare does too. Big insurance loves that Medicare confusion industrial complex, and Chapter cuts through it. They're simple by design. One call, one advisor who looks at your doctors, looks at your prescriptions, looks at your whole situation, and will tell you the truth with no propaganda, just facts. See, they work for you, not big insurance. If you're already on the right plan, they'll say it. If not, they can help you switch and cut through the deliberate fog. It's free. It takes under 20 minutes. Call the number on the screen. Call Chapter at 910-728-4109. Last year, people who found new plans with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. In a country drowning in spin, clarity still matters. And here's the detail. The conspiracy crowd can't outrun. Prosecutors didn't just place Tyler Robinson on campus. They tracked him there before the shooting, at the shooting, and again after the shooting into the early hours of September 11th. Not once, 4 times. I'm going to show you the tweets. I'm about to pull them up. And remember what just got buried under oath. Internet performers screamed. Surveillance cameras kept receipts. And we're going to put their words next to the courtroom record and let the frauds hang themselves in public. Jack Posobiec, inside the courtroom, Tyler Robinson never turned back and never showed remorse.
I was in the courtroom, seated in the front row, along with Charlie's family, Don Jr., a number of other TPUSA friends and allies. Also in the courtroom were Tyler Robinson's family, and in fact, Tyler Robinson himself, of course, sat just a few feet away from us. And you know, a lot of people I've seen online have been saying that Tyler was laughing and chuckling along with his defense team, and I saw that. But one thing that I noticed beyond that was that Tyler Robinson never turned back once. He kept his back to his own family, kept his back to Charlie's family, never once turned, never once expressed remorse, never once acknowledged their presence, never once even showed 1 ounce of any kind of human emotion towards the amount of lives that have been destroyed by this act. Charlie's wife, his widow, Erica. It was very emotional. It was very emotional for everyone. Charlie's mom and dad, and even Tyler's own family, I'm sure, were facing a lot of emotions. So reporters there as well, and then we had the entire team. And, you know, each side had their respective teams, lawyers, investigators. And above all else, we need to focus on the truth here. We need to push through the emotion. We need to push through the anger and understand that the truth must come out. And the truth of the evidence that has now begun to be presented. One side is pushing to release the evidence. One side is fighting that. One side asks that evidence be published publicly. One side fought against even having cameras in the courtroom today. One side says, let's put this evidence in court. The other side objects again and again and again. And so on the very question of transparency, accuracy, truth, it's very clear, whether you're watching at home or you're watching right there like I was, that there only seems to be one side that's interested in actually presenting the facts, actually getting all of the information out and presenting it to the court. Keep in mind, the jury isn't even there yet. We haven't even got to that point because of all these delays. I'll tell you something. No matter how long it takes, no matter how much we have to go through, we will get justice for Charlie.
So he was in the room. He saw what was ice cold, no remorse, no acknowledgement, and the defense still fighting transparency. Now Brandon Tatum takes you inside the same pretrial and zeroes in on the family pain this political murder has left behind.
You're like, dang, it's crazy because you thinking to yourself, dang, I never thought I'll see the day that I'm in a courtroom regarding a trial, and this is a pretrial, because somebody I know in the movement got murdered, assassinated. You get what I'm saying? I never in my life thought I'll be at Charlie Kirk's pretrial because he was murdered by somebody. And then you're there, and then I can't stop thinking about Erica, because I was with her in the trial. I was with her in the green room and the family. And my heart breaks for her, because what does she do to deserve this, man? She gets married to a guy who's an incredible guy. She's an incredible woman. They're an incredible couple together. And then all of a sudden, a lunatic decides to kill him because they don't like what he had to say. And while other people are spending their weekends or week going to work, they're going to go home to see their family. They probably on vacation. They're going to do all that. Erica has to endure facing the person who killed her husband and sitting through the trial. Then she got to sit through the actual trial where they show evidence and talk about how Charlie was murdered. It was like surreal, man, being in there and listening to what happened to Charlie. But it was also gratifying that finally evidence is being presented so you nut jobs will shut up and quit lying to people for clicks. And finally people can get real evidence that I've been telling y'all was true from the very beginning. But at least you can get evidence from an impartial source. When I say impartial source, it's in the court of law. You can watch it for yourself and see what the prosecution is presenting and see how the defense objects it.
So Tatum brings back to the human cost, especially for Erica Kirk. Next, we hear Charlie himself warning the Democrats were normalizing violence against MAGA voices.
This is not the last of the crazies that will do this. The last of the, I know Matt Walsh has to have full-time security. I have to have full-time security. It is open season for anybody associated with MAGA. They can't beat us, so they are trying to deploy the shock troops of the base of the Democrat Party to murder all of us. Not an exaggeration. They couldn't care less. They would delight and laugh if any one of us were to be murdered. That it's us, we need to tone down the rhetoric. We get shot at, we get death threats, and it's our fault because we magnetized it. All of you MAGA people talking about how much you love the country and how you want to stop mass migration and you don't want to see Springfield, Ohio continually abused. Oh, you don't want to see Aurora, Colorado overrun with Venezuelan gangs like Tren de Agua. You deserve to die. I hear this all the time, by the way, from Democrats on social media, where they say, Charlie, be careful with this kind of language. Be awful if something happened to you. This is the type of mentality built into your average Democrat. The average Democrat in this country, I truly believe, does not care if Donald Trump dies. They're just upset it hasn't happened yet. They are legitimizing and normalizing assassination attempts against conservatives. And they're not going to stop everybody. And if this is too much for you, go get drunk and watch football. We have a country to save, and we will defeat these savages that want us all dead, you included.
So he called it before it happened. His words hit like a hammer, but while his friends and family are demanding facts, the next clip shows Candace Owens pushing wild accusations and getting called out by lying. People are now waking up to the fact that Candace Owens is a total BS artist. Nathan Livingstone writes, here's 6 minutes of her being a compulsive liar if there was any doubt left. I'm not going to play the full 6 minutes. I won't burden you with that, but I'll let you get the point.
Certainly didn't suspect Turning Point USA would be, as I believe, involved in a cover-up. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean they were involved in plotting to kill him. And I've never said that. Cam Higbee is on the payroll of Turning Point USA, the very organization that just had its leader assassinated in broad daylight in front of the entire world. What about his burial? How come we haven't seen anything about his burial?
You repeatedly questioned why we weren't being told where Charlie Kirk is buried. Did you get those answers?
You have the wrong commentator who questioned that.
You've never asked where Charlie's buried?
Nope. What about his burial? How come we haven't seen anything about his burial?
She has said Charlie's murder, quote, had to be approved by Charlie's friends, and then suggested those friends might have her murdered too, for, quote, knowing.
I never said that. The decision was made to murder Charlie Kirk a decision that very clearly had to be approved by Charlie's friends. Is this going to be the pathway forward? You're going to start murdering more people in broad daylight for knowing? I never said that. I was totally in a cloud of grief. Okay, you remember I had to go away to Wyoming just to breathe. Like, what am I doing wrong here that I have to go away and cry for a long time and everyone else just kind of seemed giddy? That's the only way I can describe it, like giddy. That emotion shouldn't be possible. It shouldn't be possible, actually. I was in this aggrieved stage and I really didn't poke my head up until weeks later when I could stop crying about it every second. Charlie Kirk, my friend, is dead. First, this is fantastic that Preborn is doing this. I just want to remind you guys about Pure Talk. Also reminding you guys about American financing. Also reminding you guys about GNO land. Also telling you guys about Just Thrive. You can head over to our website, CandaceOwens.com. You can sign up, buy yourself a hat. I still haven't spoken to the press about Charlie Kirk, actually. I haven't even given one interview about Charlie Kirk because it felt icky to me. I think that in the coming weeks, there's going to be a lot of financial reports that are coming out. And I, first and foremost, do not believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. I want to be very clear on that. There's old footage of Tyler Robinson that is now circulating.
And as I get into the intersection, there was a vehicle in the lane.
Tyler certainly refers to it as his car, not his vehicle.
Vehicle in the lane.
He wrote me a letter on May 2nd this year.
First and foremost, that letter he is holding up, he is severely misrepresenting. Those sentences are real. I'm saying you're severely misrepresenting the contents and you're doubling down on your lie. I told you to publish the full letter that Charlie wrote you, not lines of it. Okay? It's a lie by omission.
New York Post got a hold of that letter. They've now published it. Charlie Kirk expressing his love for Israel. No attacks on Israel, just advice on how to fight lies and reach the next generation.
November 25th, I obviously tweeted, Macrones have executed upon and paid for my assassination. I reported to the FBI. Of course, I reported it to the FBI. I did not at all hear back from the FBI. And I will say I didn't go through an official channel and send an email, and I should do that. But I did send a text message to somebody very high up.
If Candace is available, we would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream at our studio here in Phoenix.
So I accept it with whistles and bells, everything. I fully accept. You can pick the place, you can pick the time, but no, they need to have it in person in Phoenix on December 15th, or they cannot have me at all. No one, and I mean absolutely no one, outside of my husband and Erica Kirk has the power to shut me up. There's nobody that has the capacity to get me to shut up about this except for Erica Kirk and my husband. I'm not going to stop unless Erica Kirk asks me to stop. If Erica Kirk asks me to be quiet, I will be quiet.
Stop. To stop.
I just do not accept any of that. Obviously, for this to have been pulled off, there had to have been multiple people involved. There had to have been people at Turning Point that were complicit in having this happen.
You said that people at Turning Point were complicit in his murder.
No, my exact sentence that I said was that there were people at Turning Point who are engaged in a cover-up.
No, you didn't.
I believe that thoroughly.
Candace, you didn't say that.
There had to have been people at Turning Point that were complicit in having this happen.
You said there were people at Turning Point complicit in his murder.
Okay.
That's what you said.
I'm certain he is going to probably be doing a lot of interviews in the near future. I just cannot see how this would lead to anything other than a full confession from the government about the military's involvement in his assassination. Like I said, I'm going to put together a fundraiser for you. And I do believe you are a missing piece of this.
I mean, I can't even keep up with all of it. Can't even keep up. That was a wrecking ball through Candace's contradictions. From burial claims to talk of cover-ups and government plots. Next, Jeremy Boring answers with a direct moral indictment. He says the evil wasn't in Charlie's family or TPUSA. Jeremy Boring, the former CEO of the Daily Wire, he says the demon is you, Candace, or is in you. The demon is Tyler Robinson or was in him. The demon is not Charlie's wife. The demon is not Charlie's closest friends. The demon is not the organization Charlie bled to build and grow. The demon is not Israel, who has nothing to do with any of this, or the federal government, who had nothing to do with this, or the Egyptians or the French or any of the other people and institutions you have slandered for money and fame. He says your narcissism and sociopathy and self-interest and resentment and grief have all commingled into something truly sinister. What you've become and what you have done can only be answered in the blood of the very Christ Jesus you blaspheme for cheap points and clicks. You are playing games with your soul, Candace, and with people's lives. It is a game you lose automatically just by playing. You sit on top of the world of fame, but you are falling into the pit of hell itself. You're leading others there too, and being cheered on by those already lost. God have mercy on your soul. So he's definitely not hedging. He says Candace has smeared innocent people. Cam Higby follows by saying she's still posting selective screenshots because her credibility is collapsing. Candace will continue posting out-of-context screenshots of chats with Charlie because her reputation is about to be burned to the ground and she needs to squeeze every dollar her career has left in it. Next, Gabe Saint cuts through the garbage and states the obvious: Tyler Robinson was a deranged left-wing extremist, not the product of a fantasy plot. To those who have no discernment, Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk because he is a deranged left-wing extremist who was sleeping with a transgender. It wasn't Israel, it wasn't Egypt or France, it wasn't TPUSA, and it sure hell wasn't Erica. And if you still think that, check your own heart. There is something wrong with your soul. Cam Higby picks it up from there and says Candace now wants viewers to ignore the trial because the evidence destroys her story. Of course, Candace is just trying to discredit the trial and get people not to watch. If they did watch, they'd realize that she's retarded and a liar. Don't believe your lying eyes. Believe my words. So that's the playbook. Tell people not to trust what they're watching. And next, exactly why sworn testimony blows up Candace's claim Robinson was never even on campus. Nathan Livingston writes that Candace Owens' conspiracy slop is immediately exposed on day one of Tyler Robinson's preliminary hearing. Candace Owens repeatedly, the last 9 months, Tyler Robinson has never set foot on UVU campus. Versus lead investigator under oath, we were able to establish that Robinson had been on campus 4 times throughout the day.
In fact, according to my source, Tyler has never even stepped foot on UVU campus.
I mean, who is Tyler Robinson? What the fuck was he doing there?
I don't
Do you think
Tyler Robinson was there.
You don't think he was there?
No. I think he's a total patsy.
Were you able to determine at what time or times Mr. Robinson visited the UVU campus on September 10th?
Yeah, we were able to establish that Mr. Robinson had been on campus approximately 4 times throughout the day, twice before the shooting, the time of the shooting, and then after the shooting later in the evening into the early hours of the 11th.
Tyler has never even stepped foot on UVU campus.
So that one fact alone is devastating. Under oath, investigators place Robinson on campus again and again. Laura Loomer comes next with another body blow, pointing to the medical examiner's report saying the conspiracy crowd got the cause of death wrong too. She says, in other words, Candace Owens is a liar and a modern-day cult leader. Quote tweeting the medical examiner report presented at Tyler Robinson's preliminary hearing confirms that Charlie's cause of death was a gunshot wound to the neck, despite wacky conspiracies suggesting otherwise. So the autopsy backs the prosecution, and another internet lie goes up in smoke. Next, we move back inside the courtroom, where a social media narrative about Erica Kirk gets crushed in real time. Not even 20 minutes after Candace's cult, Kate writes, flooded X screaming Erica Kirk isn't sitting with Charlie's parents. Charlie's dad stands up, walks out of the courtroom, and right behind him, Charlie's mom and Erica, the clowns, got publicly mogged in real time. These woke right retards, straight up pathetic.
Previous order that the media was not going to film exhibits. And they are filming the ones that are on that screen. So I guess I just need to clarify that, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
No, and I appreciate the clarification. It's important.
So the seating chart gossip falls apart once the cameras catch the family and Erica moving together. Ian Miles Chong takes it from there, calling out Megyn Kelly for acting factual now after previously defending the conspiracy circus. Megyn Kelly claims she cares about being factual when it comes to Charlie's death. Yet when everyone asks her to call out the person spreading lies, She not only told everyone to F off, but also said she supported the conspiratorial nonsense.
So in any event, Candace knows I disagree with her on this. Petty internet people want to turn that into a cat fight between Candace and yours truly, which will fail. She and I actually have only gotten closer over the past couple of months as people try to make me attack her. So fuck off, okay? It was fine. I don't think Israel had anything to do with it, but why did I have an obligation to stop Candace from asking those questions? I didn't, and I didn't call her out because I favored her asking them.
So his question's blunt. Where was the concern for facts when the lies were spreading? Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, security ramps way up as Tyler Robinson has moved in under heavy tactical protection on day 2. Transported in an Elenco Bearcat, a beast wrapped in half-inch mil-spec steel armor. Heavy SWAT team also there to keep things locked down. So the kind of security tells you authorities know exactly how serious the case is. Inside the court, prosecutors start walking the judge through surveillance that shows Robinson casing the campus before the assassination. Never before seen surveillance footage shows Tyler Robinson casing the campus. And he ate at Chick-fil-A. And here's some of the footage.
Go ahead. Okay, what are we seeing here, Agent Hall?
That's the vehicle that is believed to belong to Mr. Robinson arriving in the parking garage on campus.
At what time in the morning? What time of the day?
It's approximately 8:30 in the morning on September 10th, 2025.
And what leads you to believe that this particular vehicle belongs to Mr. Robinson?
Information that was provided regards to driver's license and Department of Motor Vehicle records. The vehicle fits the description of a vehicle owned by Mr. Robinson.
Is there anything unique about that vehicle that stands out to you?
The shape of the vehicle is very distinct, but predominantly the wheels were very distinctive on this version of the vehicle.
Now what do we see?
The driver of the vehicle exits the vehicle and then walks on foot to exit the parking garage. It's the individual in the red T-shirt and the shorts and the shoes.
And do you believe you recognize who that person is?
Yes.
Who is that?
I believe that's Tyler Robinson.
All right, and where does he go from there?
He heads out of the parking garage on foot into the campus and actually goes to the quad area of the campus. At that time, he makes contact with some representatives from TPUSA.
By quad area?
Sorry, the amphitheater is what I've previously referred it to.
All right. So he goes up on campus, visits the amphitheater area, the courtyard or quad.
Correct.
And then what do we see here now?
He returns on foot back to the same vehicle.
And what time is he returning back to the vehicle?
It's about 9:25 a.m.
And where is this parking structure located on campus?
It's just off of Campus Drive. It's a short walk from the amphitheater.
What do we see now?
That's the vehicle exiting with Mr. Robinson driving the vehicle.
Now what do we see?
This is Mr. Robinson returning to the campus on foot from the neighborhood to the northeast. You can see he's wearing the same clothing as in the previous video. And he's carrying a blue backpack.
Describe the clothing.
It's a maroon colored t-shirt with gray or olive colored shorts and then Converse shoes.
And what time did he return to campus?
Just after 10 a.m.
And does he leave the parking structure eventually?
He does, yes.
Okay. And during this visit, do you know where he goes after he leaves the parking structure?
Yes, we were able to track his movements on campus. He went to Chick-fil-A in the Sorensen building and purchased some food, sat and ate the food. Then, I'm sorry,
Where did he purchase the food from?
Chick-fil-A in the Sorensen Center.
And where is that in relation to the amphitheater or the courtyard?
It's kind of on the northeast side of the amphitheater. It would be on the upper back edge of the amphitheater, furthest away from where the tent was that Mr. Kirk was in.
And from there.
So the surveillance trail is methodical: arrival, movement, lunch, and more movement. Not some random act. Next, prosecutors narrow it down to Robinson's third trip back to campus minutes before Charlie was shot.
What do we see displayed here now? Go ahead.
This is a video of Mr. Robinson returning back to campus the same way that he did previously on foot.
And this takes just a moment. And why, well, let me ask you this. You believe this is Mr. Robinson returning to campus?
I do, yes.
Okay. And why do you believe it's Mr. Robinson?
The shoes are the same, and the images that we have are from my viewing and seeing Mr. Robinson on the video, it's the same person.
He's noticeably wearing different clothing.
He is wearing different clothing, and he also is walking with a gait or a limp in this video.
With a gait or what?
A limp.
Okay.
Wow.
Now what do we see?
So this is Mr. Robinson coming up the stairs of the parking structure. Again, he seems to be having issues walking.
Why would he have trouble walking? Unless he was concealing something.
And again, were you able to track Mr. Robinson when he leaves this parking structure?
Yes, we were able to.
Okay.
So by this point, the timeline's tightening. The third return puts Robinson right where he needed to be. Now prosecutors show the moment he went prone on the roof seconds before the shot.
You believe this to be?
At 12:23 and 28, the individual then stands up and then moves across the building to the north.
Is that what we're seeing happening right now?
It is, yes. They move behind the atrium area on the rooftop to the northeast corner where the white triangle is.
Do you see Mr. Robinson now?
I do, yes. He's just arriving at the corner of the building, the almost top center of the image.
What are we seeing now?
And Mr. Robinson lowering and jumping off of the roof of the Losi building onto the grass area, and then moving away towards Campus Drive.
So that's the moment. Graham Allen closes it out with a blunt takeaway from the courtroom. The internet clowns are wrong, and justice for Charlie is coming. Things I learned in the courtroom today: internet lawyers know nothing, podcast journalists know nothing. The truth is finally being told, and justice for Charlie is coming. So Jack Posobiec sat in that courtroom, feet from Tyler Robinson, and caught the detail that says everything. Tyler Robinson never turned back once. He kept his back to Charlie Kirk's family. He showed no remorse, no acknowledgement, no human flicker at all. The cold posture fits the footage perfectly. Campus visit after campus visit, lunch at Chick-fil-A, third return, prone position, shot at 12:23. Flee, deliberate, ideological, evil. While Erica Kirk walked with Charlie's parents, smashing the widow smear in real time, Candace Owens and the conspiracy parasites kept peddling poison. That's not skepticism, that is moral rot with the monetization strategy. So here is the line tonight. Tyler Robinson carried out a calculated assassination against Charlie Kirk, allegedly, and the preliminary hearing just started locking that truth into public record with timestamps, footage, movement, sequence, and demeanor. The lie merchants got caught red-handed. Candace Owens pushed filth about Erica Kirk and Charlie Circle, while under oath testimony and video tore her script to shreds. Megyn Kelly helped create air cover for that carnival, then tried to dress it up as the factual adult in the room. No sale. The America First movement should not forget who defended the widow and who fed on her agony. It should not forget who named the killer and who protected the slander. So share this segment with the people still trapped in that online sewer. Put the clips in front of them. Make them look at the 4 campus visits, the Chick-fil-A stop, the prone sequence, and the man who never turned back once. Then ask him which side that they're on. I want to make sure you're on the right side too. And that's why we set up this telephone number, so you can stay informed with every piece of news that we put out. Text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963 and do not miss anything. And make sure you are supporting our work here at the Next News Network as we expose these lies by going to the merch shelf below this video. Okay. We're doing our best here, folks, with this stuttering camera issue. So thank you for everybody sticking around. We got more news to get at. We're going to move from the Kirk assassination to what happened in Iran. And remember, when these videos drop, share the links on social media. Share the tweets, share the videos, share the YouTube links. Text them to your friends and family. That's how we win the information war. So we're going to move into the Iran story. We'll also talk about what happened at NATO and the Seth Rich news, which is rather interesting. More burn bags have been found, apparently. Okay. Let's go ahead and I just want to check one thing here. Okay. I advise the representative of the United States to be polite. That smug little line from Iran's ambassador lasted about 5 seconds before America snapped back and ripped the mask off the whole regime. Tim Walz didn't blink. Walz didn't blink. He crushed them in public. I'm not going to dignify this from a regime that has killed tens of thousands of its own people. And while Tehran tried to posture at the UN, its own hardliners were screaming traitor and hypocrite at Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in the street. That's not strength. That's a terror state cracking in real time, and it gets worse. See, this matters because Iran is not just throwing a tantrum in some distant chamber. Iran is threatening one of the most critical shipping lanes on Earth, hammering at energy flows, global commerce, and the price pressure American families feel first and hardest. In the Strait of Hormuz, a tanker got struck as President Trump arrived in Turkey, and ships caught audio of an Iranian threat barking, "This is the last warning, and you'll be targeted." That's not diplomacy. That is a cornered regime trying to spook the world because Donald Trump gutted its leverage. And the sickness does not stop overseas. Jackson Hinkle, born under the protection of the American flag, flew to Tehran and led "Down with USA" chants with regime loyalists before posting "Long live Iran" online. Name that for what it is: open moral rot. The Iranian regime has American blood on its hands, and Hinkle treated anti-American propaganda like a personal branding opportunity. Foreign enemies and domestic traitors feed each other. Trump's hardline matters because weakness worship always gets Americans hurt. And when tankers get hit in Hormuz and hostile regimes bark orders at ships, you better ask one hard question. If the digital system freezes tomorrow, how much of your money is even real? Everybody cheers AI and cloud finance until a keystroke locks the gate. What if your account gets hacked? What if your wealth gets erased by code? Noble Gold Investments gives you something real, physical gold and silver, a coin you can hold, a bar you can stack, something that doesn't live on a server, can't be frozen by a keystroke, and can't be erased by code. It can be shipped to your door or placed in a tax-advantaged retirement account. Go to nextnewsgold.com, mention my name for a free 10-ounce U.S. Independence silver bar when you open a new qualified account. Own real metal while weak regimes fail. Now here's the detail that seals it. Iran's rulers want negotiations abroad and death to America at home. That split eroded and exploded right at Khomeini's funeral procession when Abbas Araghchi got branded a traitor and a hypocrite by the very machine he serves. So I'm going to pull up the reactions and keep that contradiction in your head. The mullahs beg for breathing room in one room and then whip up hate in the next. That's panic and not power. Here's the moment at the United Nations.
I have one word only. I advise to the representative of the United States to be polite. It will be better for yourself and the country you represented. Thank you.
The representative of the United States has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Frankly, I'm not going to dignify this with another response, especially as this representative sits here in this body representing a regime that has killed tens of thousands of its own people and imprisoned many more simply for wanting freedom from your tyranny. Thank you, Mr. President.
So after the smug UN warning, the regime got a reality check. Now, what's happening back at home? In Iran, where hardliners reportedly turned on their own foreign minister and branded him a traitor, Iran is eating itself. Iran Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi reportedly attacked and forced to withdraw from Khomeini's funeral procession after hardline regime loyalists branded him a traitor. The regime wants negotiations abroad and death to America at home. Check this out. So while the mullahs lecture the world at the UN and brawl in their own streets, the threat is moving to open water. New reports of a tanker strike in the Strait of Hormuz and chilling audio warning ships to turn around. A tanker been struck in the strait as President Trump arriving in Turkey. No casualties reported. Here's the audio of an Iranian threatening ships in the strait.
And another reported tanker strike in the Strait of Hormuz. We think 2 have been struck. It might be more, but we'll hang on to 2 for the moment. A tanker struck by an unknown projectile trying to transit the Strait of Hormuz. Apparently another one made a U-turn and turned around. No casualties reported. Vessels are being advised to transit with caution. Meanwhile, from Fox Business, they've obtained audio of an Iranian threatening the ships in the strait, and here is how that sounded in English.
This is the last warning. This is last warning. This is last warning. You are running danger. Don't put your life in danger. You are ordered to alter course, to port us immediately. Alter course, to port us immediately and use the south of Florida Island to exit. If you disobey, you will be targeted. This is the Navy out.
Okay, Rebecca Heinrichs now, senior fellow.
And that's the danger when Tehran thinks intimidation still works, but the propaganda machine isn't stopping at missiles, because now an American influencer on the stage in Iran leading anti-American chants. American social media influencer Jackson Hinkle led Death to America chants in front of a crowd of several thousand Iranian regime supporters during a rally in Iran.
Down with USA! USA! Down with USA! USA! Down with USA! USA!
Wow. down with USA, whipping up the crowd. Next, even more of that spectacle with Hinkle shouting down to the USA in Tehran. Another angle of that.
میخواد به زبان خودش بگه من سوال کردم حالا که میگه USA چه don't be USA درسته؟ به زبان خودش بگید کیف کنه دست همه بالا موبایل همه روشن پیغام میدان انقلاب به دولت آمریکا وگرنه آمریکایی هم پیدا میشه که اینطوری آزاده باشه دست همه بالا ببینیم خودش چجوری میگه شما جوابشو بدید
Down with USA! Down with USA! Down with USA! Down with Zionists! Down with Zionists! Down with USA! Down with Israel!
So if there's any doubt where he stands after those chants, he erased it himself. Next, he puts it in writing, straight up post praising the regime. Long live Iran. Yep, pretty clear where he stands. It says plenty about where he sides. Meanwhile, the stakes are raising at sea with fresh reports that Iran may have fired anti-ship missiles and drones at U.S. Navy vessels in the Sea of Oman. Iran reportedly fired anti-ship cruise missiles and drones at U.S. Navy vessels. Reports indicate at least 2 anti-ship cruise missiles, multiple drones launched at American warships. No word of interceptions, impacts, or damage. No U.S. confirmation of the attack. It would be Iran's answer to tonight's massive strikes on its coastline and the revoked oil waiver. And from regime fanboys online to possible attacks, it's getting serious now. The response breaking reports that the United States is conducting massive strikes on Iran from insider paper.
Whoa. Whoa.
So it appears that President Trump is going to have to finish the job himself. So the big insult in this whole spectacle didn't come from a missile or a drone. It came from an American, Jackson Hinkle, standing in Tehran and leading chants of down with USA for a regime that has murdered dissidents, jailed its own people, and backed killers with American blood on their hands. Then he posted, long live Iran, as if treason by brand deal makes him edgy. It makes him useful. Useful to the mullahs, useful to the anti-American propaganda, useful to every thug who wants America ashamed, hesitant, and weak. Pair that with Iran's ambassador sneering, be polite at the UN, and the whole picture locks in. Tehran is split, humiliated, reckless, and so desperate it now needs homegrown American grifters to clap on cue. President Trump understands this game better than the foreign policy class and spent years inflating Iran into some unbeatable chess master. He hit the regime, shattered the media's Hormuz panic script, and forced the weakness into daylight. Now the mullahs are lashing out at ships, barking empty threats, humiliating themselves at the UN, and turning on their own foreign minister in public. That's what a busted regime does when real pressure lands. So here's the line. No bowing in Hormuz, no apologies at the UN, no free pass for American agitators who chant against their own country in Tehran. Maximum pressure on the regime, total scrutiny on anybody in America running interference for it. If Jackson Hinkle wants to wave Iran's flag and scream down with the USA, let the country see him clearly and judge him accordingly. Drop your take below and share this with one person who still thinks Tehran is strong, and watch who rushes to defend the indefensible. And I want to make sure you stay on the cutting edge of the news as it happens. And you can do so by simply texting the number, texting raw feed to 844-840-4963. And we'll send you a text message when those notifications from YouTube never arrive. And celebrate the wins with the Next News Network by going to the merch shelf below this video. Okay. Yeah, we're still battling this bandwidth issue. I'm going to have to give Xfinity a phone call. Oh, okay. Thank you for sticking with us tonight, guys. It's great to have you here. Yeah, I put a tie on for you guys. Okay, where are we going from here, Brian? Let's take a look where we're going into. Yes, the NATO events. What happened at NATO? President Trump, his grand arrival. I was a little concerned about this trip, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been to the NATO summit. I know what type of security they have. But with what happened to Emmanuel Macron just before the summit, made me nervous that President Trump is a sitting duck. But I do recall the massive, massive military operation that surrounded the NATO summit at The Hague when Angie and I attended to cover that. So I know President Trump's in good hands, but we're going to get into the details now. Emmanuel Macron checked into Damascus and got explosions near his hotel. Donald Trump stepped off Air Force One in Turkey and got a warm handshake from President Erdogan. That split screen tells you everything. One Western leader wandered into chaos with cameras rolling. The other walked onto a NATO summit tarmac and started rearranging the board in real time. And then Trump dropped the line that blew the doors off the foreign policy cartel. Sometimes you get along with the toughest people, and sometimes the weakest, most pathetic people are the ones you cannot respect. He wasn't just talking about personalities. He was handing a verdict to the entire failed Atlantic establishment. This matters because the smug foreign policy cartel spent years wrecking relationships that serve American power, then billed you for the damage. Joe Biden's team, Brussels bureaucrats, and the think tank class poisoned ties with Turkey, slapped on sanctions, froze Syria's defense cooperation, and acted like moral lectures counted as strategy. Trump landed in Turkey and gutted that script in hours, and he said it flat out, we're going to be taking the sanctions off. It's time to do that. That's not chatter. That is leverage returning to Washington. Then he opened the door on the F-35s and said Turkey has been much more loyal than other countries than we think would be loyal. Read that again. Trump is rewarding loyalty, rearming influence, and forcing NATO to function around American interests instead of European vanity projects. While Trump rebuilds a useful alliance, Mark Rutte stands there practically grinning about producing Abrams tanks, AMRAAMs, ATACMS, small diameter bombs, and Stingers in Europe. The establishment always has money for munitions and lectures, and Trump has a plan for power. See, Macron lands near explosions in Damascus while Trump walks into Turkey, spotting hidden threats early. And that brings me to Parasite Purge. A 35-year-old man fought blurry vision for months before doctors found a worm moving inside his eye after eating undercooked fish. The World Health Organization tracks parasitic infection prevalence at 1 in 2 affected. The damage can hide as brain fog, chronic fatigue, pain that won't go away, IBS-like symptoms, even severe chronic conditions. Jonathan Otto built a typical cleanse alternative, the full-spectrum parasite elimination protocol with a science-backed parasite formula and red and near-infrared light therapy to support healthy cellular function and natural detoxification processes. You also get free bonuses, including a 10-day intensive parasite detox protocol to prepare your body, support the cleansing process, and maximize your results. Visit PurgeMyParasitesNow.com. Use code NNN45 to save 45% for a limited time. Trump spots weakness fast. Now here's a detail the establishment cannot hide behind a press release. Trump didn't just praise Erdogan personally, he tied policy to loyalty and drew blood on the old consensus at the same time. While Mark Rutte bragged about Europe cranking out bombs and Macron's Damascus trip got drowned out by blasts, Trump said sanctions come off and F-35s are back on the table for a country Washington spent years freezing out. That's a direct rebuke to the failed class. I'm going to roll the tweets because, well, we're going to light it all up the second that line hit. And speaking of lighting it up, here's the video capturing the explosions near the hotel where French President Emmanuel Macron was staying in Damascus.
الله أكبر عم صور قام صار انفجار ثاني الله أكبر.
So that was a blast where Macron was staying. Now more footage coming in with reports that there were car bombs likely meant to disrupt his visit. More footage, the blast likely to disrupt his landmark visit, which marks the first trip by a major Western leader to Syria since the fall of Assad. Macron is safe after 3 car bombs went off near the hotel he's staying at. So he may be safe, but the message around the trip is chaos and weakness. Meanwhile, NATO boss Mark Rutte up at the podium pushing more weapons production and U.S. defense giants with U.S. defense giants and European partners.
Pleased to see a range of allies working notably with Kongsberg, Raytheon, Boeing, and RWM Italia on some of these initiatives. Second, I welcome that the United States and several of its leading defense companies, including Anduril, Boeing, General Dynamics, Land Systems, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon, have agreed new industrial cooperation initiatives with major European players in the defense sector, like Diehl, PGZ, and Rheinmetall. This will allow us to produce or sustain key American capabilities, such as Abrams tanks, AMRAAMs, ATACMS, the Barracuda 500M, small diameter bombs, and Stingers here in Europe.
The war machine marches on. So he talks more bombs and more buildup. Trump is moving in a different direction, heading to Turkey for the NATO summit, saying, making the trip for one reason, Erdogan. He told reporters the Turkish president is a friend and respected leader, and dropped a hint that Washington and Ankara could tighten up defense cooperation while he's in town. The summit kicks off today with Ukraine defense spending and regional flashpoints all fighting for the top slot. Trump boarding the new Air Force One. President Trump wheels up. Next, you'll hear Trump explain why some of the toughest leaders are the ones he respects the most.
What they wanted, that's why they went with the Russians. So here's the President of the United States now walking off a plane he clearly loves. And after a trip that was obviously much more comfortable than he's used to.
And at the bottom, you'll see greeting him Ambassador Tom Barrack of Syria and Iraq. You'll see Matthew Whitaker, the U.S. ambassador to NATO. General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he will be there. And then the man putting this all on, which is the president of Turkey, President Erdogan, will be greeting him. And we are about to, there goes President Erdogan greeting the president of the United States.
Yeah, the president has a great relationship with him. And look at the hand clap right there. Also, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is traveling with the president on this trip as well, from what we know.
So it's interesting because this relationship doesn't just go when the president was president.
Right.
He was building Trump hotels, Trump Tower over in Turkey. So they were dealing on a business level first. And that's where a lot of these leaders, he got to know some Middle Eastern leaders too, prior to him becoming a politician because of stuff he's done in business.
From here, they'll go to the presidential compound. So we'll watch as that takes place. But Brian, you're absolutely right. A long relationship And President Erdogan has said one thing that he wants is to be given access to the same security initiatives as other NATO members. Turkey is a NATO member. His slogan has been from Texas to Ankara, Ankara, of course, being in Turkey. He wants access to those programs, and he'll be given them in a pretty extraordinary way with the re-access to that F-35 program.
What makes some people uneasy about Turkey, a lot of things with Erdogan, but number two is how close he is to Vladimir Putin. Of course. So that's when you say, hey, you got his missile defense system. Now you want our jets. Got to make a choice. But the one thing Erdogan has done that the president appreciated, he also has good relations with Iran. Right. And he told the Iranian leaders, whoever they are, I'm staying out of this. Right. And then they rocketed Turkey a couple of times. So now they said, and they've said some negative things about the Turkish leader at the Ayatollah's funeral, the never-ending funeral he's on. So they said something negative about Turkey. So he kind of risked that alliance for the president.
Let's listen in to this.
He just stopped briefly. It's hard to hear what he said, but our producers will let us know if they're able to make that out. To your point about Russia, tonight a special dinner invitation extended to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. So those will be some interesting conversations that are had over dinner. As Zelensky, of course, not a member of NATO, but included in these talks in this big moment for these European powers in the United States.
You know, I got to be honest. It just shows you the chemistry between these two. I'm not used to people touching the president. I mean, he's holding on to the president. The president is not as affectionate that way. So to see him allow that, to see this bond, to see how they greeted each other, that just shows you the separation right there. It is going to be interesting going into these meetings because obviously the president is closer to Erdogan than many of the NATO countries.
No, Erdogan.
It's a Lions classic. Trump respects strength, not weakness. And now, a step further, Turkey has been more loyal than some so-called allies. President Trump with Erdogan.
And some people you don't. Sometimes you get along with the toughest people, like him. And sometimes you don't get along with the weakest, most pathetic people. You just don't get along. Maybe you don't respect them. But from the day we met, we got along. We had.
You know, I am a little concerned about this visit, given the proximity to Turkey, that Turkey is to Iran, one ballistic missile strike away from taking out the President of the United States. But you know, security is high. I've been to the NATO summits. I understand the military operations and the security measures in place. But it's not chemistry. Trump's talking hard policy. Next, he signals a major reset, saying sanctions on Ankara are coming off.
Sell F-35s to Turkey, and what about the legal restrictions?
Well, it's a decision we're going to make. We have a very good relationship. I would think that many people, I can tell you, many people, including the people sitting right here, thinks, why wouldn't we do that? We have a better relationship with Turkey, and Turkey's been in many ways much more loyal than other countries that we think would be loyal. So, yeah, it's something certainly we would consider. It's a great plane. It's the best, currently the best plane by far. And it's certainly something we will consider, yeah.
So after floating F-35s, Trump goes further and says it's time to lift sanctions on a country he calls a friend. Here's the moment he lays it out.
I can tell you, we're going to be taking the sanctions off. Okay? I don't want him to waste his time answering that question because we're working very closely with Marco Rubio, a very famous man, great Secretary of State, and with Scott Bessent and with Pete and everybody else. We're going to be taking the sanctions off. It's time to do that. Okay? We don't want to sanction friends. It's very simple. There's plenty of people we can sanction, and we are sanctioned. We don't want to sanction friends. And because of the president, we have a very good relationship with the new leader of Syria, and he's done an amazing job. In a year and a half, he's pulled the whole country together. And I have a very great relationship with him. And somebody said, well, he's pretty rough to put him there. I approved him along with the president. We were the two that really wanted him, and he's done a great job. He's done a great job. He's pulled it together. Not an easy job.
So the climax sits in Trump's own sentence, and it landed like a hammer because everybody knew exactly who he meant. Sometimes you get along with the toughest people like him. Sometimes you don't get along with the weakest, most pathetic people. That line shreds the whole fraud. The weak men here are not Erdogan. The weak men are the NATO paper pushers, the sanction addicts, the regime priests who torched leverage, weakened NATO from within, and called that sophistication. Mark Rutte bragging about more bombs while Macron dodges explosions in Damascus only sharpens the point. Trump walked into the volatility, named loyalty, removed deadweight sanctions, and put American power back at the center. Strength recognizes strength. The foreign policy cartel only recognizes invoices. So pick a side. Do you want the old model? Sanctions on friends, lectures for allies, bombs for procurement boards, and another decade of freeloading globalist confusion? Or do you want Donald Trump doing what he just did in Turkey, testing loyalty, rewarding partners, reopening leverage, and forcing the alliance to serve America instead of the other way around? Turkey matters because geography matters. Syria matters because order matters. F-35s matter because hard power matters. Trump knows that. Marco Rubio knows that. J.D. Vance knows that. The people panicking on cable panels and in Brussels memo mills know it too, which is why they will work overtime to sabotage this opening. Don't let them rewrite what you just watched. Trump stepped onto the tarmac and the old script is starting to burn. If you want this White House to keep steamrolling the weak-minded foreign policy class, share this broadcast and drop your take below, and we'll keep this story moving. In order to keep it moving, we got to make sure you're getting the news. That's why we set up this telephone number, raw feed. All you got to do is text those words to 844-840-4963 and join the thousands of patriots who are keeping the truth moving along. And you can keep the truth moving along by going to the merch shelf below this video and supporting the Next News Network. Resto guy coming in hot with a $50 super chat. My goodness. Haven't seen one of those in a while. Never forget, you are amazing. You saved this country, people. Thank you, Resto guy. Sincerely, thank you for that. Okay, we're going to get into this next story about Seth Rich returning to the headlines after apparently another secret room at the FBI has been found. Several hundred pages on Seth Rich sat inside a previously hidden room at FBI headquarters. Let that hit. The same FBI that told Ty Clevenger in 2017 it had no records whatsoever on Seth Rich now admits the paper trail existed, and Kash Patel's team dragged it out of an unmapped, sealed area inside of the Hoover Building SCIF. Not a rumor, not a fever dream, a hidden room in FBI headquarters. And Fox already tied that same sealed area to burn bags linked to Crossfire Hurricane. So the question tonight is brutal and simple. Who hid those files? Who marked them for destruction? And what did the Clinton DNC machine need buried so badly? Now the story matters because Seth Rich is not just one unsolved death in Washington. Seth Rich is the trap door under the entire Russia hoax. The old regime FBI told the country it had no records. False. Ty Clevenger laid out the timeline. In 2017, the Bureau claimed zero records because it was not involved. Then the Bureau got cornered and coughed up thousands of pages. Seth Rich's work, laptop, an image of his personal laptop, and another DVD. Now, the government admits several hundred more pages sat in a previously hidden room at the J. Edgar Hoover Building, inside the same SCIF universe where Kash Patel's team found burn bags tied to Crossfire Hurricane on July 30th, 2025. You do not stash dead-end local case material in a sealed SCIF and line it up for destruction. You bury explosive evidence there. Tim Burchett cut through the nonsense in one clean sentence. The FBI needs to release all the files on Seth Rich immediately. Exactly right. Because James Comey's FBI, the Clinton DNC machine, and the censorship thugs who smeared citizens as dangerous for noticing the holes, all built their power on concealment. And when files turn up in a hidden room at FBI headquarters, you remember how bureaucrats weaponize confusion to keep people trapped. Medicare works the same scam by design. Big Insurance feeds the Medicare confusion industrial complex with mailers, robocalls, and fine print so families freeze. Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor, no maze, no games. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your whole situation, and tell you the truth. No propaganda, just facts. They work for you, not Big Insurance. If you're already on the right plan, they'll say it. If not, they can help you switch fast. It's free. It takes under 20 minutes. Call Chapter at the number on the screen, 910-728-4109. Last year, people who found new plans with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. So cut the fog and demand the files. And here's the detail the regime can't spin away. Ty Clevenger says the FBI fought him so hard he had to file another motion on June 15th of this year over records the Bureau still withheld in violation of court orders. Think about that. Even after the hidden room discovery, the same machine kept clawing to keep pages buried, and that tells you everything. And I'm going to show you the tweets because the public sees the pattern now. Every conspiracy that these people mocked keeps turning into inventory inside a federal building. John Rich, the famous country singer, asked the question, who killed Seth Rich? And he puts it quite bluntly. Now, Ty Clevenger says several hundred pages tied to Rich were found in a previously hidden room at FBI headquarters, making Ty Clevenger making this rocket to the top of the trending news on X. He said, today, an attorney for the government told me I would soon be getting confirmation that several hundred pages of documents related to Seth Rich were found in a previously hidden room at FBI. He says you may recall on July 30th of 2025, Fox News Digital reported that newly installed FBI Director Kash Patel and his leadership team had located an unmapped, sealed area within the J. Edgar Hoover Building SCIF. Last year's Fox report described burned bags that contained thousands of pages of classified files intended for destruction. Those files were linked back to 2016's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Now it appears the Seth Rich records were among the files designated for destruction. He says, mind you, I don't have anything in hand yet. I don't even know whether the FBI will agree to release a single page of what it found. Nonetheless, any confirmation that the files were in the secret SCIF raises a lot of questions. At the very least, some very high-level people had something to hide. He continues that the FBI told me in 2017 it had no records about Seth Rich because it was not involved in the investigation. We were told he died in a botched robbery, and only the local police were investigating it. And since that time, the FBI has gradually admitted to possession of several thousand pages of documents about his laptop, his work laptop, an image of his personal laptop, another DVD. Nonetheless, on June 15th, I had to file another motion explaining how the FBI is withholding records in violation of the court order. If the FBI is still fighting transparency so hard on other fronts, and it is, then why would it acknowledge that records about Seth had been hidden in the SCIF? I don't know. Maybe Joe DeGeneva's grand jury investigation in Miami is putting some heat on the players in D.C. I can tell you this much for sure. Nobody on Capitol Hill has been willing to touch this subject with a 10-foot pole. The murder of Seth Rich and the resulting cover-up is as radioactive as any topic I've ever seen. I hope that changes soon, and I'll post updates as soon as I know more. By the way, I'm not that. I feel great. Next, Hans Monkey explains why he believes the Clevenger's Bulldog work may be the only reason this is coming out. He says, I have no idea whether Seth Rich leaked the WikiLeaks stuff or why he was murdered, but I have so much respect for Ty Clevenger for sticking with the case with bulldog determination. If it weren't for him, we'd never have any chance of finding out. Now, maybe one day we will. So he's giving credit to the man who kept pushing when Washington wouldn't. Now Congressman Tim Burchett takes the next step and demands the FBI release every Seth Rich file immediately. They need to release the files. Tim Burchett. He wants the files out, no more games. Next, a wider report lays out the core claim documents the government once said did not exist were allegedly found inside that hidden room. Leading report, the government has notified the attorney representing Seth Rich's case that several hundred pages related to Rich, previously claimed not to exist, were found in a previously hidden room at FBI headquarters. Next, the general puts a name on who found them. Kash Patel and his team located several hundred pages of documents related to Seth Rich at a hidden room. Xavier Figueroa ties the Seth Rich story back to the DNC emails and the push to blame Russia. Seth Rich had a backup copy of the DNC server emails. They tried to blame it on the Russians, but Bill Binney demonstrated that the transfer rates and the times were not possible through an Ethernet and server connection. It was taken from a USB port. I remember when Bill Binney made those claims. The pages are great, but the contents of the email is the key. If it's true, Donna Brazil, Skippy Podesta, Wiener, and Huma Abedin are in a world of treason. Next, One Blunt Post revisits the so-called robbery story and why many Americans will never buy it. Oh, you mean the DNC staffer who was shot in the back of the head twice in a robbery where nothing was stolen? The same guy that leaked DNC emails to WikiLeaks, according to a private investigator. The same guy that Assange refused to rule out as the leaker. Later offered a $20,000 reward for information about his death. Oh yeah, 100%. We'll definitely get on the bottom of that one. Of course, that's the suspicion people have. Next, a Trump voter makes the political point. Seth Rich was a Bernie supporter. What I find interesting about Seth Rich, he was a Democrat Bernie supporter that was fed up with the Clinton debacle of democracy. That's why he was sacrificed. Now we go to Joe Rogan, who says the whole thing looks way too strange to dismiss.
A guy who was a real Bernie Sanders supporter, open Bernie Sanders supporter who worked for the DNC. The DNC absolutely rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders. He was aware of this. He was there while this was all going down. So was Donna Brazil. Everyone was aware of it. The guy got fucking murdered after he leaked information to WikiLeaks. If you don't think that's a little weird, what are you looking at? What delusional rose-colored glasses are you looking at your party from? You think you're in some Julia Roberts movie from 1990? This is real shit. Some guy got killed. He was 24 years old. He was a young guy who was very optimistic and had this view of the world where the guy fucking wore American flag pants and shirt. There's a famous picture of him with a beer on. He's a patriot. In a lot of ways, he wanted to be involved in the political process. He was very idealistic. He was probably shattered by finding out that the party that he was working for was corrupting the democratic process. And because I've said this before, I've been accused of helping Donald Trump win by really wacky people online, by pointing out all the flaws of Hillary Clinton. Look, man, you can't ignore that shit because you want one side to win. I've talked about all of his flaws too.
Shit like that
If
happened.
more stuff comes out, like the Seth Rich stuff, the amount of people, and this is where I leak any conspiracy theories, the amount of people connected to the Hillary Clinton organization, to the Clinton Foundation, to Bill Clinton, the amount of people that have been iced is stunning.
But
some of them are bullshit and coincidental, and people, and they're in a weird job, and people get killed. There's a lot of people that have been killed. A lot.
But don't you think, what I love when they talk about the Uranium One story like it's debunked.
Right.
Bill Clinton got $500,000 put directly in his pocket from a Kremlin bank. Directly. And then $142 million flowed into the Clinton Foundation. And it was a bunch of motherfuckers surrounded a nuclear deal because they wanted to do charity.
So what's the argument that it was debunked?
They say, oh no, this is, she was only one of 9 things that had to sign off on. There was all these other agencies that had to sign off on it and this and that. It's all bullshit. That was all influenced. Someone gave your Clinton Foundation $142 million. That's to buy influence, and $500,000.
So they zero in the DNC corruption and why Rich's death still raises red flags. Next, another thread pulls in CrowdStrike Ukraine and Comey's own admission that the FBI never got the DNC server. MJ Truth Ultra. Now that Seth Rich is back in the news, let's revisit how it all ties to CrowdStrike Ukraine and Russia. How did Trump know? Quote, I still ask the FBI, where's the server? How come the FBI never got the server from the DNC? Where's the server? I want to see the server. The server, they say, is held by a company whose private ownership is from Ukraine. Trump number 2. It's very interesting. They have the server from the DNC. The FBI went and told them, get out of here. We're not giving it to you. They gave the server to CrowdStrike, or whatever it's called, which is a company owned by a very wealthy Ukrainian oligarch. Why did they give it to a Ukrainian company, CrowdStrike? Comey, were you given access to the forensics on the servers? We were not. A highly respected private company got access and shared with us what they saw there. In a nutshell, the DNC would not give access to their servers to the FBI or John Podesta's devices, but they would give them to CrowdStrike. How it comes together, CrowdStrike is a cyber firm that fabricated the entire claim that Russia hacked the DNC, which created Russiagate. They accuse Julian Assange of working with Russia. Assange never revealed who his source was, but it's widely suspected Seth Rich was the leaker, and they murdered him for it. CrowdStrike was later discovered to be working for the Clinton campaign. 4 years later, CrowdStrike's CEO admitted his contract was not with the DNC, but instead with Michael Sussman from Perkins Coie, retained by Sussman and Clinton. The entire Russiagate investigation began because the FBI relied on CrowdStrike rather than independently investigating the, quote, hacked DNC servers. How did Trump know when all the intel agencies claim otherwise? The greatest military operation the world has ever seen. Trump and the military absolutely 100% knew what was going on and exactly where those servers were. This is evident when Trump admitted to setting a trap for Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff by allowing them to go through with impeachment hoax number 1. It's evident that Trump had more than everyone thought when the Biden bribe tapes were leaked, calls of John Kerry, Biden, and Poroshenko. The globalist Dems and rhinos panicked, said Russia attacked the United States and America by attacking the DNC servers. Now all those same globalists can't stop worshiping Ukraine because they're protecting their own criminality. Let's not forget, in 2014, when the U.S. effectively ran a coup and regime change, how the CIA, or USA, Gov, and traitors Obama, Biden, Nuland, and others overthrew Ukraine's government in 2014. Nuland was caught on tape planning Ukraine's new government shortly after. Let's not forget how they panicked when Trump was elected. Just after Trump was elected, McCain and Lindsey Graham went to Ukraine, desperately trying to get control of eastern Ukraine since Trump was just elected. After their trip, McCain and Lindsey Graham come home and desperately try to blame Russia. Notice the pattern. Seth Rich opens the door to Ukraine, Clinton, Obama, and more.
Working for much tougher sanctions against Russia. They attacked the United States of America. The hacking was an attack, and we should be treated as such, and we think their financial institutions and other aspects of the Russian economy should be addressed, and we will strongly urge our colleagues to enact more meaningful and stronger sanctions against Russia because of their attack on the United States of America.
We're going to go back and tell our colleagues what Russia's up to in the Baltics, what they're doing in the Ukraine. We're going to get briefed about Georgia. We hope to make 2017 a year of offense. We believe that Putin has hacked into our elections in America, that he's trying to undermine democracy all over the world, and it's time for new sanctions to hit him hard as an individual, his energy sector, his banking sector. It is time to push back against Putin, but be a better friend to our allies over here.
Wow. Seth Rich on deck. So the clip connects Seth Rich to the Russia hoax pipeline and puts Comey right in the middle. Next, Mike Benz shows how the regime went after speech itself, flagging questions about Seth Rich for censorship. Mike Benz posting this: after questions about Seth Rich's death led to creation of DHS CISA in 2018 via the CrowdStrike Intel laundromat, DHS then in 2019 put conspiracies about the death of Seth Rich on its disinformation kill chain hit list of speech that needed to be nuked from the internet. I'm not going to play this whole clip, but I'll get the gist of it here.
Disinformation kill chain. So you see how it is right here? This is in DHS. In 2019, they have to astroturf their fake fucking field because this is the cybersecurity unit at DHS. So they have to contextualize their censorship operations as being cyber-related somehow. So instead of just calling it First Amendment violating government censorship, they say, no, it's just borrowing from the cyber kill chain model, which just serves as an inspiration for this framework. So it's cybersecurity. It's not First Amendment violating social media censorship. No, it's just cybersecurity because your tweets have misinformation. Does this look familiar? They take the whole thing, they just grafted it. They took the whole fucking thing. And look what this says. Useful idiots. Us, the citizens who voted for the government. That the citizens paying their fucking paychecks at DHS. Their salary comes out of our pocket. And what are we? Fucking useful idiots. Authentic voices. That's who they target. Real people. Now look what they say here, okay? Notice how they dehumanize. The whole thing they dehumanize. So they never have to say, oh, we're murdering the free speech rights of U.S. citizens. No. They say you're not really a human when you tweet online. You morph from a U.S. citizen with constitutional rights to a threat actor. A threat actor starts with an objective, such as changing a population's opinion on a topic. Brexit. Department of Homeland Security says if you support Brexit, you're no longer a U.S. citizen, you are a threat actor.
So it wasn't just about hiding records, it was about shutting people up. Now we go back to 2016 when Julian Assange was asked directly about Seth Rich and gave an answer that still haunts this case.
Trump has had a disastrous few weeks. If you look at the polls, he needs a miracle. In the American political lexicon, there's such a thing as the October surprise. The stuff that you're sitting on, is an October surprise in there? Do you even know what you're sitting on?
WikiLeaks never sits on material. Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. There's a 27-year-old works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
But it's quite something to suggest a murder. That's basically what you're doing.
Well, that others have suggested that. We are investigating to understand what happened in that situation with Seth Rich. I think it is a concerning situation. There's not a conclusion yet. We wouldn't be willing to state a conclusion, but we are concerned about it. And more importantly, a variety of WikiLeaks sources are concerned when that kind of thing happens.
Wow. He said it without even saying it. He wouldn't name a source, but made clear the stakes were deadly serious. Next, another post pushes a much darker claim about who may have carried out the hit. Seth Rich exposed the rot of the DNC Hillary Clinton. So they hired 2 MS-13 members to 86 them, both of whom ended up dead. So that shows just how many unanswered questions still surround the murder. Next, grassroots reaction on those hidden FBI documents. This is great news, isn't it? Hillary Clinton and Donna Brazile, I pray we finally get justice for Seth Rich. So the moral center of the story is not subtle. Kash Patel's team found an unmapped, sealed area in the Hoover Building SCIF. Inside that world sat burn bags tied to Crossfire Hurricane. Now the government says several hundred Seth Rich pages were in that hidden room too. James Comey's FBI told America there were no records whatsoever. Hillary Clinton's political machine rode the Russia lie for years. Then DHS censorship enforcers branded Seth Rich scrutiny as disinformation and pushed to nuke it from the internet. That's not a string of innocent errors. That's a system, a Washington protection racket. They hid records, they smeared dissent, they framed Donald Trump with a fraud architecture built on secrecy, CrowdStrike theater, and bureaucratic intimidation. So here's the demand tonight, and it needs to ring in every congressional office and every FBI corridor. Release every page. No slow walk. No priesthood redactions. No more games with dead files in hidden rooms. Kash Patel already proved what real leadership looks like. Donald Trump put men in place who rip open sealed compartments instead of sealing them tighter. Now, with the Attorney General, FBI Director Kash Patel, and every Republican with a spine need to force disclosure all the way down to the names, the memos, the custody logs, and destruction orders. And Tim Burchett is right to hammer it in public because sunlight is the only language this regime fears. If you're sick of being lied to, send this segment to one person who still thinks Russiagate was legit. And ask that person one question. Why did Seth Rich files wind up in a hidden SCIF room at FBI headquarters if the Bureau had nothing at all? Start there, and then keep digging. And I don't want you to keep digging for the truth, and that's why I set up this telephone number for you. And thousands of patriots are taking advantage of it. They've already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963, and they're getting the notifications that YouTube never sends. And make sure you're celebrating the wins with the Next News Network by going to the merch shelf below this video. All right, folks, that is a wrap tonight. Thank you for sticking through this with us. We were testing out some new technology, adding some new cameras to the workflow, and we're going to work on some of those bandwidth issues. Hopefully we can get it all sorted out. We did our best tonight to bring you the news so you can make informed decisions for your family. And tomorrow I will be heading to Milwaukee. J.D. Vance is scheduled to speak on the fraud task force, and so I got to get some sleep. I got to leave at about 3:30 in the morning to head up to Milwaukee and get the cameras in place and bring you the news as it happens. That's supposed to be taking place, I believe his remarks are around, well, I don't even know, am I even allowed to disclose it? I don't think I'm allowed to disclose that yet. No. Just stay tuned for the official remarks. Stay tuned to X, Next News, Trump Daily Post, YouTube, and Rumble for all the latest from the Next News Network. Good night, and God bless.